Greetings, listeners, and welcome back. Thank you for joining me here at Tales of Terror and Suspense. I am your host, Beatles for Knives. Tonight, we continue the disturbing mystery of sounds coming from a nearby woods in a small town. One night, our protagonist hears crazed laughing coming from outside his window. This is new. Our hero has not heard this in 2 years of living there. So, be sure and keep your doors locked, turn out the lights, sit back, and listen to. If you hear someone crying in the woods, turn around and go directly home. Part 3 by Dark and Creepy. Last night, I heard laughing coming from outside, and I'm not even damn joking. There was literally something chuckling, like a crazed maniac on the other side of the wall. And I awoke with my blood pumping so hard that I felt like my veins were about to burst. I have never heard this before in the 2 years that I've lived here, but I've been told the stories about it. Supposedly, when the thing begins laughing, which is extremely rare, and the last time it happened was when someone was taken from their house in the middle of the night. That person was a 70-year-old woman that had lived here most of her life. Her children had all moved away by then, and her spouse had died 4 years prior. So she was by herself, which is the same case I'm in right now. Also, guess what the police report said? It stated that she died of natural causes. There is nothing natural about being strung up in the damn freaking tree and gutted like a fish. That's how the people from town explained it to me, and they were very close to her. So when they heard about the cover-up, they went to complain about it. They were then told that if they really wanted to get the press involved, then they would have to lose all their homes and land because the government would declare it unsafe land to live on. So they all backed down. Anyway, when I checked my house this morning, I found the kitchen window wide open, and the lock to it was crushed to pieces. There was no way for me to keep it shut. So I had to resort to duct tape, which makes me look more like white trash than I already am. I looked at the back of my house where I found the scratching previously, but nothing had changed since the day before, except for the pine needles being all stirred up. I decided to follow where it looked like something had dragged their legs through the needles, and it led to my window. I looked through it, and there was a small crack in the blinds, which allowed a perfect view of my pillow where I rest my head at night. My hands trembled when I realized someone or something was watching me as I slept. But I don't know if it was just some crazed lunatic or if it was the thing from the woods. Some of you have commented that I should move away, and I was thinking that was a drastic decision and not worth doing, but after last night, I feel like I have no other choice if I want to live. I ended up talking to my friend Manuel about everything, and he responded by saying, "You have to stop writing about that goddamn thing. It doesn't like to be explained to anyone or anything. That's why the old woman went missing a while back, because she kept telling her children about the strange occurrences of the voice after they had moved away. Then her children would tell people, they would know, and so on, and so on, and so forth." I replied, saying, "But I think everyone should understand not to follow that voice or any others in the woods, because there has to be more than just this one out there. That's exactly why it's trying to stop you from doing that. It doesn't want to be understood, because then it loses its power of luring people to it," Manuel said as he observed the damage to my house. "If I were you, I would delete those parts and stay off of the internet for a week. Don't talk about it to anyone from out of town or anybody for a good while. Maybe the thing will forget about you and what you've done. Just hope your post doesn't become too popular, because that would be a death sentence," Manuel finished, talking as he took a Coke from my fridge. I agreed with what he said at the time, but I feel like I have an obligation to warn as many people as possible about whatever it is. Now I'm going to add that if I end up not posting anytime soon, then something has happened to me. And who knows if I'll even make it through tonight. Please pray for me, no matter which God you believe in. I need all the help I can get at this point. Before I end this post, however, I'm going to tell you the story I heard from Manuel about the search and rescue officer who made it out of the woods after losing one of his fellow officers. It was after that incident that they put up signs in the fences trying to keep people out of the forest. I will tell you the story with the best of my remembrance of the events that took place. The scenario they were called out to the woods was that a young woman who was a sophomore in college was on a road trip to see her family after the school year ended and decided to stop and go hiking along the way. Her car was parked along the road and was there for 2 days until it was reported by someone in town. The police came to check it out and found that she had left her purse under the front seat, and it had her driver's license and school ID. They contacted her parents, who were worried sick because they had no idea where their daughter was. So the police called search and rescue out on the scene, and they took off into the woods in the direction that the dogs caught her scent. They only sent 2 search and rescue officers to search for her, which is strange, as if the people who sent them already knew it was a lost cause and wanted to send people just to say that they tried their best. It was wrong, and they ended up sending 2 rookies out into the scene, according to the officer who had survived, because according to him, he'd only been on 2 other searches for missing people before this. So while they were having the dog follow her scent, they were able to see some of her footprints in the dirt. This brightened up their spirits because they knew they were headed in the right direction. However, as they continued on, they noticed that the footsteps began to become uneven, and sink deeper into the ground, as if she was running. They looked around to see if she was chased by a predator such as a bear, because they are common to this area, but there were no other tracks to be seen. The ground was also not disturbed under their or her footprints. The rescue officers were wondering what had caused her to run so frantically, and that's when the dog yanked on the leash as it barked at a nearby tree. They thought they must be close due to the dog's reaction, but they called out and no one replied back except for a faint whimper. The whimpering slowly turned into a blood-curdling screaming, and the officers took... They looked around and they looked ahead, and finally they saw the woman on her hands and knees crying on the ground. The officer's partner ran forward to help her while he stayed back and held onto the dog that was still barking furiously at her. "What's wrong, boy? You found her?" the one officer said to the dog as the dog's ears dropped down, and the dog, out of nowhere, yanks hard on the leash, which is loosely held by the rescue officer, allowing him to escape. The dog ran back to where they came from in a dead-out sprint. The officer called out for him to come back and blew the dog whistle, but he never did. Soon he gave up trying to call him back as he heard laughing, and as he turned his head, he noticed that the girl was now holding his colleague by the neck. He didn't know how to react and yelled, "Put him down! We're here to help you!" The laughing only grew worse as she watched his colleague's face turn purple before she looked at him with a big grin on her face. The officer just ran, leaving his partner behind while screaming on his radio that he needed backup, but no one ever responded. Behind him, he could hear the crunching and popping of breaking bones. He was able to escape and got back to his search and rescue work truck. He drove like a madman out of there when no one believed his story. He lost his job because he had abandoned his partner, and his partner's body was never found. He told Manuel the story, and Manuel told it to me. He told people in this town because they were the only ones who took his story seriously, while others would mock him and call him a coward. That description of it, and the other story I told you earlier about the 5-year-old boy who said he saw his mom looking back at him from the woods, proves to me that this thing can do more than just mimic people's voices and cries. It can also shape-shift, which makes me believe it's either a skinwalker or something that's never been heard of before. Whatever it is, though, it can kill. All I know now that it's getting into my head and ravaging my thoughts like a crazed animal consuming a carcass. Again, pray for me. I'm going to stay tonight at Manuel's house because I don't feel safe in my home anymore. If I write again, then it means I made it through the night. But if I don't, then consider this my last testament. Till we hopefully meet again, always remember to stay safe out there and listen to my advice. If you hear someone crying in the forest off of the main trail and you have a death wish, go try to find them. I dare you. Well now, things are getting more intense for our hero. The thing is beginning to wear our protagonist down, getting into his head. I wonder, should he stop writing his experiences down? I certainly would. Tune in next week and see if our hero is still with us. Until next time, pleasant dreams.